Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize your emotions, understand what they're telling you, and realize how your emotions affect the people around you. It is a common myth that emotional intelligence is about not showing emotion at all, especially in the workplace. It is exactly the opposite. Showing emotion is imperative to building relationships. It is, however, the way in which we show these emotions that makes the difference. If you are angry, be angry, accept, acknowledge, and analyze why you are angry. Most often, we will translate the emotion to someone or something that someone else said or did rather than acknowledging and analyzing the way we feel about it. Factors in being emotionally intelligent are being able to reason, understand your own emotion and those of others, being able to manage emotions, control emotions, and respond appropriate to others. The bar on EQ dimensions identifies 5 dimensions that affect emotions. The intrapersonal relations, which is the relationship we have with others. How do we see ourselves? What do we know about ourselves? What are our strengths, weaknesses, interests, abilities, and skills? What makes me different from everyone else? I'll tell you, your past experiences. There's no getting away from the fact that most of our sense of self is determined by our past. Our identity is determined by 2 dynamic, complementary, and competing selves. To differentiate, we'll take a look at the vectors that influence this identity. One vector is the interplay between our past and our future. The other, the tension between the image others have of us and our own self-image. Each quadrant in the vector has one of 4 sources of our identity. The remembered identity. How do you know who you are? This is the memory of events in life that helped form your sense of self. For good or bad, they've left an impact. However, successful people tend to mind their past for the gold at the end of the rainbow. Nothing wrong with your past, but it is important to review to get to know your strengths and weaknesses. Don't cling too tightly though. Just remember how it made you feel. Reflected identity. This is where other people remember events in our past and then remind us of them. This reminding is how we shape our reflected identity. Remember though that not all reminders are good faith or in forgiving nature, although it is important to pay attention to reflection. Reminders are given in good faith should not be self-limiting. Don't become what people say you are. Programmed identity. This identity is a result of other people's messages that are sent to us about who we are or will become. Parents would be the first in this case. They shaped us, programmed us to think, feel, and do in specific ways. This can shape the opinion you have of yourself. However, we can't lay all the blame on our programming. We need to stop turning to the past and others and rather to ourselves. And lastly, our created identity. This is where self and future meet. This is the identity we create for ourselves. This identity is not controlled by our past or others. Successful people have become the person they choose to be. We can change to fit differing times to achieve higher goals. The next bar on the EQ dimensions is adaptability. How adaptable are you? Do you routinely do everything and never change? It is important for emotional state to change occasionally. Not being adaptable brings upon cosmic habits that provide no room for growth or development. Being able to adapt allows for changing times and allows us to cope with challenges that may arise out of the norm. If we continue to do what we do in the way that we did it, growth and development become stagnated. consideration, and adapting to other people's ways of doing things gives room for learning, growth, and development, especially in the workplace. Stress management is our next EQ bar. Oh, and how do you manage stress? Pretty much on everyone's mind today, I'm sure. These challenging times call for stress management more than ever. You've probably heard people say stress is managed through healthy eating and exercise. Although these may be true, we also need to look to ourselves. What makes us stress? What do we stress about? Why do we stress about whatever we're stressing about? Let's use a typical example. Let's say you stress when you don't get to work on time. Assess the control you have over the situation. Are you not getting up early enough? Is the transport and/or traffic delayed? If it's the transport and/or traffic, pretty much nothing we can do about that. However, we need to ensure that we are leaving early enough to get in the traffic and/or transport timeously. Do you stress about money? Sure you do. We all do. Is stressing and/or worrying going to help though? Is there something you can do about it? Sure there is. Apply gratitude. Always assess the stress factor and make an informed decision of whether or not it is in your control. If it is not, make peace and move on. Then we get to our next bar, which is general mood. What is your general mood? How do you wake up every morning? Are you somber? Are you optimistic? Do you always look on the bright side or cheerful? It is necessary to maintain a positive attitude in the face of adversity. I have a choice. I can choose to let it define me, control me, outline me, manage me, or I could just let it be. It's all about choice. And then we get the interpersonal dimension. Interpersonal relations, as we have learned over the previous topics, is the relationship we have between others. Now, if we don't even have one with ourselves, how do we have one with others? Knowing ourselves and our emotions through the interpersonal dimension impacts on the way we communicate. It is important to be able to express the feeling rather than react to them. In order to express feelings, we need to have vocabulary to do so. Every morning you walk into work, you are most likely asked, "How are you?" You reply, "I'm fine," when actually you've just had the most horrid morning ever. Why not reply, "I'm frustrated, I'm so angry, I'm irritated, I'm annoyed, I'm happy, I'm so sad today. I feel lovely, I feel great, I feel awesome, I'm so embarrassed, I feel loved, I'm overwhelmed by all this traffic in the morning, I feel so underappreciated." There are so many ways in which to express your feelings, but fail to have the vocabulary to do so, thus limiting us in our interactions and conversations. And that's a wrap on our topic of understanding emotional intelligence. Our past and future dimensions are governed by competing and complementing aspects. We have been programmed, reflected on, been reminded, and we create our own identity, and these are all sources of who we are. Being emotionally intelligent requires a balance between the EQ domains of our relationship with self, those we have with others, our general mood, and how we handle stress. You can't always choose your situation,